Hello and welcome to episode 83 of our Conversations to Connect. Let's Get Real podcast powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm Cyndi O'Neill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. Our conversation to connect this week is with the amazing and fabulous Laurie Hardie joining us from Everett, Washington. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, I am so excited to walk alongside you as we unpacked what leaving a legacy truly means. So, before we dive into this rich conversation, I want to take a moment to introduce Lori to our exceptional connectors who may not already know her. Laurie Hardie is a beloved Seattle radio host, author, speaker, podcaster, and coach who has spent more than 3 decades helping people share their stories with courage and clarity. As a former single mom of three and now grandma LaLa, I love that, grandma LaLa to six, Laurie understands the profound value of capturing life's moments, honoring our experiences, and passing wisdom from one generation to the next. Lori's is passionate about helping women speak in a way that truly connects. During the pandemic, she made a powerful discovery. Many podcasters, Zoom facilitators, and online leaders believed they were communicating inclusively, but their methods were unintentionally isolating listeners. Drawing from her 35 years in broadcasting and her degree in social services, Lori now teaches people how to make their voices more inviting, intentional, and impactful. So, Lori, would you share with us as we kick off this conversation a bit more about your journey and discovering how we're going to leave a legacy?
Legacy often is uh, like combined with financial. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah. And so, really, legacy is our voice. Legacy
Mhm.
is this. Do you see my cup? So, when I was on Warm 106.9, my Christmas name was Fa La 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 Lori. And part of it's because
Oh,
my grandkids call me Grandma Lala. And that's a legacy. And one of the things I used to call it like a grand pod. I encourage women to do, and men, Chuck, but is push record. Get out your phone, do a little video. When I was 5 years old, I stepped on a nail, and this is what happened. Tell the story, stop it, and leave it on your phone. It doesn't ever have to become a podcast. But the truth is, our story, our big story, is 100 little stories. When I stepped on the nail, I threw a bone at my sister, a dog bone. I got mad at her because she was riding my trike, which I got a bike. My mom gave her the trike. I didn't get the memo, and so I threw a bone at her. Well, she turned around and it hit her right in her forehead, and it gave her like this V. And this is what I said, 5 years old. You should be called Vicky. But that's a story, that's a legacy. Do our kids know it? Yes, because we've told it, but when we pass, sometimes those stories get forgotten. And when my brother-in-law passed away, my sister slept with his phone. On his phone were pictures of the grandkids. There were videos he made of him with the grandkids. That is legacy. It used to be someone would pass away, and what'd you do? You call their phone so you could hear their voicemail over and over and over. But now we have access to leave a legacy to our family. And if you're like me, your kids don't necessarily want to hear about it right now. But when you're gone, I guarantee you they'll want to know that story. So that's really legacy, is just, you know, leaving uh leaving our audio. For me, it's usually audio or video for the next generation, even if we do it today and they don't get it for 20 years. Because whenever we get a new phone, it travels with us. Everything loads onto it.
Oh my goodness, your message is so beautiful, Lori, and so important because sometimes we wait too long to document those beautiful stories and share them and just keep them for posterity, for others to be able to benefit from and for our family to cherish. So you shared with us already, one of your memories from when you were just a young girl, 5 years old, right? And how that made an impact. So you've spent over 35 years helping people tell their stories. So, you've already shared the five-year-old memory, but share more stories about, how being deeply connected to legacy and not just communicating has made such a big difference.
Well, stories are what matters. Stories, when we think, if you're someone who's read the Bible, my favorite book in the Bible is Luke because there are so many stories. And that's how I resonate. And working in radio, so many times people say to me, everyone says I should work in radio because I can talk. And I inadvertently, I mean, I don't mean to be mean, but I say, well, your program director would come in and tell you to tighten it up. So how we tell a story is important too. And this is the thing I see people will say, well, it happened Sunday. No, no, it was Monday because I fed the dog the pill. No one, Susie came over. Nobody wants to hear that. That doesn't matter. We learn to tighten it up and tell the story in a way that matters. When my sister and I are working on a little comedy routine. So when we were probably 7 and 5, uh, I got mad at her. And so I was not a good sister. So I was breaking her crayons and she's laughing, but I think she's crying. And I'm like, what are you doing? She goes, you're breaking your crayons. And I go, no, I'm not. No, they were my crayons. I was breaking my crayons because I was mad at her. So using stories in a way to tell a story to make people laugh, but also it's a memory. It's something that happened. And stories, when you think about the Indian culture around the bonfire, they tell stories. And so when we can leave our stories of our family, when we were kids, when they were kids, just one little story, one little 5-minute story can make such a huge difference. And also, those stories can be used in impact. Has there ever been a time when you thought you were doing something, one thing, and realized you were doing something else? I thought I was breaking my sister's crayons to prove a point, but I was breaking my own crayons. Like every story can be used as a message, as a teaching point.
That's so true. I mean, they call it folklore, right? So it passes on from one generation to the next. It's humorous. We learn things. It's wisdom that's communicated through the generations as well. But there's some people that many people might not think they have anything important to say. So how do you help someone who's reluctant or who doesn't feel like they have stories to, and their stories carry value, meaning, and influence. How do you encourage them to share away and to be able to document those memories?
I love that question because I used to run Esther's Place. And we had what we called Testimony Tuesday. So people who had gotten off of drugs and alcohol, maybe got into housing, would get up and share their story. So there was one lady that worked with us. She was mostly in the office. And we said, will you share testimony? She kept saying, I don't have a story. What am I going to share? And I sat her down one day and I said, you really don't think you have a story? And she goes, no. And I said, okay, I know you don't think you have a story, but that thing that happened to you, would you share that? And she goes, well, I don't even know how that would help anyone. So this is her story. She agreed, but she didn't think it would help anyone. One day she was at work and she heard on the radio about, some of you may have remember this, about a family that was driving under a bridge like in Tacoma area, and the bridge fell at the same time, fell and smashed their car. And she heard it on the radio, and her coworkers were like, oh, that's horrible because it was in their area. Then the phone rings. It was her daughter, her son-in-law, her baby grandson. She told this story and she talked about how angry she was at God, how hard it was to lose them all. And when she was done, three ladies, three older women walked up to her. They live on the streets and they said, this is why I'm on the streets. I couldn't deal with my grief. I lost a partner. I lost a parent. And that began a whole series of events that put her up on stages speaking about grief and loss. And every year she posts a picture of the family. Since then, she has twin grandkids that are now 5, and that's really enhanced her life. But that's a story. And here she says to me, I don't have a story.
Mm. And the reality is we all have stories, right? We just, what you said was um, really kind of brought it to life for me is we don't think our stories will make a difference. We don't think our stories are valuable to share. There are stories and nobody else cares about them but us. But what comes to mind for me and your sharing is stories have a sticky factor, right? So they create connections and bonds between us. And those connections bring down walls. And then, we have we talk about this a lot, in exceptional connections. And this is near and dear to our heart, exceptional connections. Chuck and I'll often talk about, the humanity. It's about the humanity. It's, the human connection and bringing us together. And I think that's one of the things that's, for me, stories really kind of unlock give us permission to each share our own story, even if it's goofy, even if it's like we did something that was crazy, right, Sandy?
Or, yeah, or maybe we think it'll make us look bad. Like the women I work with, they stole, they were in jail. So this is one of my favorite stories from Esther's Place. This woman who had come out of drugs and alcohol was working on get her kids back. She was helping me at Esther's, and we're standing in the little room, and in comes this woman who's older. She's filthy. She's probably slept in the dumpster, but biggest smile ever. And she walks in, and they both see each other, and they start screaming, and they're hugging and jumping up and down, screaming. And I say, how do you know each other? And they both look at me and they say, jail. Stories
Wow.
matter.
Yeah, they do. Stories and connections. It's all about that. So I want to talk about your podcasting and how you support people, but before we do that, let's segue to what I shared in the very beginning in the intro. So during the pandemic, you discovered that many online communicators thought they were being inclusive, but they weren't. And so what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've noticed and how you can help our listeners to avoid them?
Thank you for that question. First, I'm going to say this. I did a workshop with a lady who did not gel with me with what I'm going to tell you. She's like, that doesn't offend me. And what we realized is so some have you heard of ACEs? Raise your hand if you've heard of ACEs. Adverse childhood experiences. So this is a organization now that people are using to train teachers, because when a teacher, say she's in a classroom and a student gets up and sharpens a pencil and she says, "Hey, you didn't raise your hand, you're interrupting me." Now a student from a nice loving home will go, "Oh, sorry," and go sit down. A student from maybe that has suffered abuse or trauma is going to cower, and the teacher's going to go, I didn't, what did I do?" The teacher doesn't realize that she sounded harsher. She didn't think she did, because any, let's say, normal kid would just go, "Oh, sorry." So children with adverse childhood experience respond differently. And if we pay attention to that, we can help them. So I am a child of ACEs. My score is very high. If you go on the webpage, you take the test. Well, the woman who said, "No, I don't agree with you, these things don't matter," didn't have an ACEs score. She had had a very nice childhood. So these things wouldn't offend her. And so when I tell this story, you might think this wouldn't bother me if somebody said this. But if you think about the ACEs score, at least 57% of your audience has childhood trauma. So they're going to
Mm,
respond differently to what you say. So when COVID hit and I was alone all the time, everywhere, I wasn't lonely, but I was alone. And so when I would get on all these Zoom calls, uh, people would get on, leaders would get on, and they'd go, "Hey, everybody." And they felt like Mama Hen going like this. Well, as soon as they'd say everybody, my thought is they don't care about me. And I'd start looking at my phone. I'd turn my camera off because they don't care about me. Why should I? I'll just listen and do other things. And so then I thought, oh my gosh, I think I'm a narcissist, that I want this leader to care about me. But what happened is, so social services crashed into radio. The first thing we learned in radio Radio 101. If you ever take any radio courses, speak as though you're talking to one person. And that's why Wolfman Jack, any of you remember him? Yeah. That's why everybody loved him because they were like, he is talking to me. They thought he was their friend. And that's how I've always spoke. I speak as though I don't say, hey, everybody, if you're in Bellevue, I say, hey, are you in Bellevue? Because if you are at Southeast State, there's an accident. So if you get over in the right lane, you're going to get in the faster lane. So then people lean in because they're like, oh, she's talking to me. So even if you don't think, oh, this is silly, half of your audience will respond and lean in. And maybe that half of the audience is who you're really trying to reach, who you're trying to feel, you want them to know that you care. Even if you don't know them personally, you want them to feel as though they're important. Isn't that what we do as speakers? We want, and when we do speaker training, what do you say? You say, talk to the one person who's looking to you and responding. You know who else is really good at this? Musicians. Why? Because they are singing to one person. They're
Mhm.
singing a story about a love song about you. And how many times did you ever go to a concert where you said, I think they were looking at me, and your friend next to you goes, no, oh no, they were looking at me. And the girl behind is like, oh no, they were looking at me. And that's
Mhm.
as speakers, as trainers, that's what we want. Because when people feel connected, they feel like they matter and they're more likely to want to work with you. And the good people we are will say, if we can't work with them, we'll say, no, I'm not a good fit for you. Like my services don't serve you. But at least it opens that door for us to be connected in a bigger way by saying, you guys, how many times have you heard? I'm like, if I hear you guys again, I'm going to scream. You, what is it you want? Now, what is it you guys, all of you here? Like, so when we talk as though we're talking to one person, it feels weird, but that's what we do in radio. And that's why people really fall in love with radio hosts that they like because they feel like they get me.
It's such an important message. And as I'm launching my podcast myself, I'm wanting to shift my languaging so that I can be able to be more, like you say, more inclusive, have people feel like we're speaking just to them. Because frankly, when we're talking to everybody, we're talking to nobody, right?
Isn't that marketing 101?
Yes.
Yes.
And so it's such a simple method, but just reminder, but it's so important. And it makes you feel special. It makes you feel like, oh, they care about me and they understand me. And don't we all want to be understood you know, and seen, right? Seen, heard, and witnessed is what we say at Exceptional Connections.
So I was
So,
on a call the other day, and the person talked like that. She talked like she was talking to me. So there was a
mhm,
room full of Zoom people. We none of us knew each other, and we didn't really know her. But because she spoke like that, there was no way I was turning off my camera or getting on my phone because I felt like she was talking to me, and I better pay attention.
right, right. You can't hide because it's a conversation. Who's gonna, I mean, yes, exactly. If you're going to be in a conversation with somebody, it would be rude to you know, walk away. Right? You want to be in that conversation. So, Coach Lori, you are, expanding from radio and all of your beautiful history and experiences working in radio, and you're using all the skills that you've learned over the years and helping others to create their own podcasts, right? So, before we really get into it, share how important it is for us to support each other as podcasters, wannabe podcasters, which I have been for many years, and now getting my toes wet thanks to you and your support. How important it is to support each other with stars and ratings and sharing and all of that.
I love that question. Can you share your page? Is it still up?
Oh,
This
sure.
is why this is why this matters because whenever I launch a podcast, because of my network, my support, people get downloads. And Cyndi has this network and she has asked them by email. She's asked them at meetings. She's asked on these calls, will you support me? Will you give me a 5-star rating? Will you write a review? And this is what happens. She gets noticed. And it's not just a one time thing. It's happening over and over as people listen and download. And when we listen to a podcast and we like it, if we go right away and give it 5 stars, just write a little review. Hey, I love this interview. I learned how to garden. I learned how to plant a dahlia, whatever it is, then it supports that podcast and it puts it up. And now what's happening with Cyndi's podcast is she's getting up into we need to check that, Cyndi, see what percent you're at. She's moving herself up into the top 5%. And those are the podcasts that last, that people notice, and that get promoted more by other podcast people. So you can see she went from 5 yesterday. Last 7 days was 8, and now she's up over, I think it's what, 4 weeks to
Yeah, it's since
3.7K.
October 11th, I think, is when our
Okay.
first podcast went out. And I've been dropping one every Tuesday. And so it's just a matter of sharing because when we first started, for those for you who are listening on this podcast and can't see the graphic, there was this big jump and we were like, whoa, where did that come from? And then it kind of just, kind of like a little wave. But now we're starting to kind of see some undulation, which is really fun and really beautiful.
Yeah.
And, what I'm learning from Lori is that's just, that's the from people sharing from with others and getting into other markets and other territories. That's where that comes from. So, when we
And
looked at the statistics, that wasn't the intention of this
yeah,
broadcast, but
no, but
into the 500s and over 1,000. And then if you really look at it, you can see that 96% of the downloads are, I think almost 2,000 now, are in the United States. But what's really exciting for me is to see, even if it's in the double digits, Turkey, there's 33 downloads, in Belgium, there's 19 downloads, and Lithuania, 19. And, it's not a lot, they're not huge numbers, but it's like the reach. It's exciting, right? To see
it,
who can be impacted by these messages that are being shared.
And think about it. Every one of your episodes is a guest. And when we think about being a guest on a podcast, if we are a guest, then we share that podcast with our network. And that is a courtesy. I just had this great guy on. He's actually friends with Garth Brooks. And so like I was like, this is really cool. Do you know I sent him all the reels? I sent him all the info. He did not download them. He didn't share. And I mean, I went to all this effort to have him on to make these reels. And I thought, isn't it interesting when people don't even realize the value of now? If someone says, well, have you been on a podcast? Bam, here, you send them this reel. Now you've got all this proof that you have spoken, that you have done things. And so anyone on Cyndi's thing, could say, "Oh yeah, well I was on Conversations to Connect. Here's the link." Because every episode has their own link. So it's not only good for Cyndi and for our community. And now Cyndi can say, someone will say, Cyndi, I just don't know how to do a podcast. Oh, go listen to Lori's episode. Oh, go listen to, someone wants to write a book. Now you've got training material. Like content is content is content. And Nicole teaches books on tape. If you do a book, you got to record it. And that's a podcast. So it's so massive of all the things that it can do.
Well, but what I love is the collaboration piece. And that's really my heart for our champion connectors and really for everyone, all of our exceptional connectors. And so I don't mean everyone, but each exceptional connector, each
See,
of
she
us
caught
who are
herself.
exceptional connectors, right? And so the thing to really realize is Lori's message that she shared a few moments ago about sharing with each person, we're not used to that. We're used to saying, "Hey, everyone, come join us." And so it's going to take time for us to really focus on the individual, which is so important, especially in podcasting, because you want each person to feel important. And so, I love this message. I love this conversation and the collaboration in sharing and supporting each other. And one thing I want to get better at is going back to each episode for each of the guests that I've had and sharing that link with them so that they have their own link on the podcast and so that they can share it and use it. And we can support each other in getting the word out because there are beautiful messages that deserve to be shared, right?
Yeah. And I was going to say, Cyndi, some people who are speakers, before they speak, they'll do that super power woman pose. Have you seen that TED Talk
Yeah.
where you take the pose? It's like before you start, you're going to see hundreds of faces on the Zoom. Think I used to, before I got on the radio every day, I'd think, who am I talking to today? A lot of times it was my sweet little nephew, Mark. So I'd put a picture up on the mic and I would only talk to Mark. And it's hard when you see everyone. But for instance, when we stand up in front of a crowd and we say, "Welcome, I'm so glad you're here," people are going to be like, "Oh," versus "Welcome, everybody." Like,
Right.
and it's like you just when you start to focus on one person, Cyndi, you're there. You look at Chuck and you say, "Welcome, I'm so glad you're here." We all think you're talking to all of us, and so it really is a pre-mindset. So before you
Yes.
get on the call, before you do the thing, and it feels weird. I just edited a podcast today and she said, "What do you want them to know?" It's like, say, "What do you want us to know?" Because I
Mm,
am us. I am who you're talking to.
right.
And so it's just taking a minute beforehand to to just get in that mindset of I know it's hard. It's like a horse with you see the horses in the Christmas parades with the blinders. Put your
Yes.
blinders on, pick one person, and just know that all people will feel as though they are that one person. And that's what makes a difference. And so during COVID, if there had been one, I paid for a financial Zoom call. I had to get off. I had it was so much you guys, everybody, that it was like you're just up there talking to yourself. You're not even recognizing that we're here. And that's how it felt. And so if we want the people to feel like they matter, then we do this. And if we don't care, that's okay. That's okay. Do what you want. But if you want at least half of your audience, the other half won't even know. They'll be like, they just feel okay. But the other half will be like, wow, I matter too. I'm part of this group. I belong. And that's what I think, especially after COVID, is what we all want. We want the people we're speaking to feel like they matter, to feel like they belong, because they do. They do matter.
You know, the y'all messaging, right? As
Y'all.
we could say, yeah.
How about y'all, all
As
y'all.
as all y'all, right? That messaging, as warm and fuzzy as it kind of might sound, is really counterproductive. And so I love that you're just really, this is such a an important message whether you're doing a podcast, you're on a YouTube channel, or you're doing a talk for somebody. So I thank you for really, for passionately sharing this message to help all of us to make that shift. It's a subtle shift, but it's so
Yeah.
important because don't we all want each person that's joined us to feel like this is for you. We are taking our time and our energy to give you insights and information that you can maybe take one little, we call them gold nugget, and incorporate into your life or your business to help you. So let's shift to you often say, you, Lori, I'm really conscious now. You often say that content can be reused, recycled, reshaped. So why is this mindset so freeing for creators and podcast hosts? And I know
That's
I
a
can attest to that myself.
Yeah, that's such a great question because this is what I hear when people first want a podcast. What will I say? Who will listen? And I'm not techie. And what will I say? I say, have you spoke at a chamber? Well, yeah. Did you record it? Yeah, that's a podcast. Have you spoke at a group, done a training? Well, yeah. Do you have a recording? Yeah, that's a podcast because we are people who have life experience. We know what we know. We have experiences, we have insights, we have wisdom. We don't necessarily have to go prepare anymore, right? Sandy, she's shaking her head, right? we know what we know what we know, and so we're going to say it. I have a little 5-minute podcast I do called Enough, and I talk about should about every 6 weeks. Don't should on me, don't should on others, you know. And so I just reframe it different. It What we know is what we know, and the message we give. How many times have we had a situation where someone said, oh, I needed to be reminded of that. Thank you. So often it's something they've already heard, but they just needed a reminder. And that's kind of the thing about content. It's just so reusable. And for instance, one of my clients just did a 30-minute interview with somebody who talks about burnout, and we're putting it into 10-minute segments. But then we're going to keep it as a whole 30-minute thing. Now that's 4 pieces of content that she can use for training, for podcasts, for her membership group. It's like what we put out matters, and it matters so much that we can use it and reuse it. And so when I do a Nicole can attest to this, Cyndi can attest to this. When you've been on my podcast, not only is it evergreen and you can keep using it again, now you've got a reel with you talking that you can share about your message. And so it's just a way to keep reusing it and keep saying it differently, because there's nothing new under the sun. We don't have to keep reinventing. We just keep saying it in another way. We say it forward, we say it sideways, like that kid that never understands. And you have to, my youngest, we had to go in the back door. We had to make him think everything was his idea. And then he was like so on board. But I didn't have to do that with my other kids. So again, it's just the different ways we give one message.
The other thing I've learned from you is from the reels, because we recently did a podcast and I was your guest, which is a flip of what I normally do. I'm normally on the side of interviewing somebody and initiating the conversation and really putting the spotlight on the guest. But one thing I learned from you in being on your show and then having you do some reels of our conversation is that I may not have said it that way if I had just that one question. You know what I mean? To capture that content. But in having it organically through a conversation where we're sharing, you're able to draw out some really beautiful insights from your guests.
Mm.
And so that's one of the things that, I'm gleaning from this is the reuse, the recycle, the reshape. It's not just, yes, I wish Marcel was on the line because she's always encouraged me to do these little 10-second reels and put them out there. And that's fine because that's, kind of like a nugget refined and you put it out there. But there's something really magical about it coming from a conversation organically, and you just kind of snatch it and grab it and put it into a reel. So I love that. And then I can tell you firsthand also, because I want to do a shout out for Laurie in this conversation. I was definitely a reluctant podcaster. And, I'd been hearing about the power of podcasting back in 2018, 2019. Does this resonate with anybody listening, right? We've been hearing about this. We've been hearing about the power of podcasting, how we all need to do it. But like me, am I ready to do this? No, I didn't feel like I was. And so when 220 and the pandemic and, really focusing on Zoom and doing 28 conversations to connect with exceptional connections to keep our networking group alive, I thought, well, I'll do conversations to connect and we'll put them on YouTube. And I felt like, if I do those, then I'll be honing my network, my podcasting skills, but not really podcasting yet. And so I shared with you, Lori, I thought, well, after I do 100, then I'll be ready to podcast. And then
Yeah.
Lori and we have met many years ago and our paths crossed again. We're so grateful to have you part of our Exceptional Connections community again, to have you be a champion connector in our community. And when you saw how much content I had, you were like, Cyndi, look at all this content. You need to get this out there. And again, I was thinking, okay, now we start with new content. And everything that was previously recorded is just, you know, helping me build that muscle, right? Helping me get the confidence to get out there. But you've shown me that that past content is still, it's evergreen, it's beautiful, there's value in it. And we can
It's
still,
history.
it's
It's
history, yes.
COVID history. All
Yeah,
those conversations when I was editing them, I'm like, this is history right here. You're
it
talking
is.
real time. What's happening?
Yep, that's
Yeah.
so true. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Beautiful contribution.
Mm.
So what advice would you give someone who wants to record their stories again, but feels overwhelmed, emotional, self-conscious, or unsure where to begin, like me?
I feel like
But
I should turn the mirror back on you and ask you that question.
well, I kind of answered it because what what I would say to you who are wanting to get into podcasting or even wanting to do YouTube channel is just start and just get in there, and it's not pretty. You have to be, what are they the saying? You have to be terrible before you can be good. You have to be good before you can be great. You have to be great before you can be amazing. And so there's this continuum, there's this process, but you have to start someplace. And so, and give yourself permission to just, do the best you can and be yourself and know that you're going to get better and better. We
Push
have to give
record.
ourselves that grace, right?
Yeah. Push record. When I, in radio, when I listen back to my first tapes, but we grow as we go, and we don't grow
Mhm.
if we don't go. And um what do they say? Persistence makes I can't think of the word right now, but progress. It's like by doing it consistently we get used to it. And now somebody who started even 3 months ago, they can be in their car and go, I have an idea. They get their app out and they just talk because now they know the flow, they've got the rhythm. Cyndi, with this, you've got your rhythm. You know how to get in, ask questions. You know when it's time to, you facilitate well. It's like you learn as you go. And that's the beauty of it is push record, do the thing, and then you'll evolve.
What the visual that comes to mind when I'm encouraged by you in this process is when we think about babies, and they're learning to walk, little toddlers, and they're learning to walk, and they fall, and we all know, we look at them and go, "Oh, they're so cute," and we know they're going to walk someday, right? Barring any kind of you know, um, accident or something unfortunate that delays that progress in them. But we know they're going to walk. And it's cute to see them fall, but we don't give ourselves as adults that same grace to, like, it's okay to fall, it's okay to stumble. We all have to start someplace. And so I think, I love we grow as we go is such a beautiful and important message. And that we need to share with ourselves. It's not just sharing with everyone. It's like, be okay with ourselves. We're growing, we're learning, we're getting better and better every day. Um, I I I say mantras to myself like, it's going to be okay, Cyndi. You know, this too shall pass. You
You
know,
got
you're going to
this.
get better. You got this, girl. You're going to get better and better. And so I think that's important for all of us to remember. And so, hey, as we kind of start wrapping up this conversation because I want to open it up for Q&A. I want you to share about your 7-day podcast pro program and how it helps people launch podcasts, because I have to just share, Lori has made this process so easy and so much fun. She holds your hand, she gives you the skills, she's there for you until you're ready to, take that next step. And I'm so grateful to have you, Lori, to just, help me on this journey and help others too. So, what are some of the most common fears beginners have? And, how do you guide them through that?
For some people, it's public speaking, but a lot of women I work with, it's not because they've been doing it. So the thing is, I've been a coach since 1998. And so podcasting, radio is my thing. I can walk you through that, but this is what happens, the freak out. So I like to do it in 7 days. Reason why? If we don't set a 7 day, I have this one client, she's paid me and she keeps disappearing because she keeps freaking out and thinking she's not worthy. And then finally, I find her again. We get her back in, and she does. Talk about real estate investing. That's what she does, and she does it brilliantly. And I'm looking at her going, I don't know why she gets so scared, but she's worried who will listen. And this is what I always say: if God has nudged you to tell your story, to share your experience, to speak, then it doesn't matter who's going to listen. That's not your job. Your job is to push record. Your job is to tell the story. I work with drug addicts. They come off the street and they tell a horrendous, ugly, horrible story about needles and sleeping with people and sleeping under bushes and stealing.
Mm.
Pretty soon, that story evolves because now they're talking to funders, and so they're not talking to addicts to bring them up. They're talking to funders to help the next addict. So their stories evolve. But if they never told that first story, they wouldn't have a story to evolve. Our stories evolve. And then people will say, well, I'm going to go start a new podcast. No, just iterate, just keep adding to it. Joe Rogan, some of you have heard of him. He started his podcast in the basement with nothing. If you go back to his first episode, you'll be like, wait, what? We start, we go, we evolve. And you know what it does? It shows the next person. When I'm working with the ladies in drugs and alcohol, they turn around and they say, look, I got into housing. You can too. Look, I got a job. Me, a drug addict, I got a job. You can too. That's what this does. It
Mhm.
gives hope to the next, to the next. And just because I worked in radio doesn't mean I'm better. It just means I've done it longer. I've done it every single day of my life. Like out cues, you're never more than 10 minutes away from your next traffic update. I'm Laurie on Como Radio. Like whatever you get used to, you just do it and you evolve and you get better and better and better. And so push record. Call me, have a consult. I'll cheer you up. I'll
Cheer
help you.
you up and cheer you on. So
Mhm.
nothing's wasted, Lori.
No.
You have a story. I have a story. Sandy, Nicole, Chuck, Kathy, Linda, we all have stories and they're worth telling.
Mhm.
And that's the encouragement. For me, I needed to get over myself. And I want to share with each and every one of you out there, you need to get over yourself. We have a message to share, and these messages are going to help others and encourage them. And I think that's such a beautiful message. So, as Grandma LaLa to your six beautiful grandchildren, you have a beautiful and personal perspective on legacy. So, let's bring us home. What do you hope your grandchildren remember most about you and your stories, Lori?
It's funny because they don't really care about radio. It's like Grandma Lala's on the radio. They're like, mm. So, but four of the six, three of the six are adopted out of foster care, and they're
Mm,
a challenge. They have trauma. They react to things. They don't even know how safe they are. They want their old mom back, even though she's still on the streets. I want my legacy to be that I listened, which is funny because I talk. That's my that's what I do. But I listen. And the way I listen is if people can trust me, if they can know, like, and trust me, then they can trust me to listen and to hear their story. And a quick story in Africa, there was this one little town and there was this grandma and she lived on the road to school. And so she started just going outside and sitting on her little bench as the kids would go to school and they'd wave at her and pretty soon they'd stop and tell her what happened, one kid or another. But she was there every day. And some people came in from America and they did this study and that town had the least amount or village had the least amount of crime. And they attributed it to grandma. And so they set up this whole thing around these villages with a bench for a grandma to go and sit when the kids went to and came home from school. If I can listen, but first I got to talk in a way that makes people trust me. And then if I can listen, if they say, Grandma, listen to me, that's all that matters.
It's such a beautiful gift. Listening is such a beautiful gift. You never learn by talking. You only learn, by listening, right? I love that. Okay, so your newest offering that you just shared a little bit about, the 7-day podcast program, blending stories and communication strategies on an air experience to help anyone, everyone.
In fact, I have this tool I created, and it's AI, but it's my way of doing things. So when I was creating, I said hit the road running. So then every episode that it would create, it would say, let's hit the road running. I'm like, no, don't say it, just do it. So I will offer, if you email me at lawcoach@comcast.net, I will send you the link for this. And all you do is you just put your stuff in, it will create your first episodes. You could choose 10 minutes or 30 minutes. And it's AI, it's not perfect, but it kind of gives you A, the script, B, the bullet points. And you kind of go, wow, I can do this. And then you just push record and do it. Like you don't have to post it. You don't have to be scared of your own phone and camera. Just do it and try it. And the one thing I would suggest is once you create the episode, copy paste it into a Word document because it hasn't figured out how to save it when it takes you to the next. But it'll just keep creating episodes for you with your knowledge and with my knowledge mixed together. And then it comes with a free call, a consult call with me. So if you want to do that. So you can do this. Share your wisdom, share your insight, let people know who you are and what you do.
So if you already have content, or if you have a message in your heart you want to share with the world, with people who you feel like need to understand the journey you've been on and that they can benefit from that journey and that knowledge, contact Lori. And also down in the description for those of you who are listening later, you can go to coachlaurie.com. And so the contact information is down below. So
Can
let's
I
go
ask
ahead
one
and,
question
oh,
before you open up?
absolutely.
Have you ever heard of somebody who was about to end their life by suicide, but they heard something on the radio?
Mm,
Nod if that's, yeah. That's why I do this. That's why I love radio, because radio used to be the thing. It's not anymore so much. But if our story, if one thing we say changes or helps one person, is it worth it?
oh, that's really powerful, Lori. And our world has changed because it's not just radio that there's different stations and different personalities that share. We all have an opportunity to share our journey and what we've learned. And so many more people it can resonate with that message, right? So we all have beautiful messages to share and we have platforms now to be able to do that. So this is a great opportunity. We've got
You could do
amazing
it easy.
Lori. Yeah, that's right. It's easy business. Hit the easy button. So we feel free to unmute yourself if you want to enter into this conversation that we've been having. If there's something that's been shared that just really resonated with you, if you have any questions for Coach Lori, this is the perfect time. So feel free to unmute yourself and enter into our conversation with us. Hey, Sandy. So glad you could join us.
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yes,
Oh,
you unmuted
thank you.
yourself. So love to have you be a part of our conversation, or if you have any questions for Lori.
Sure. No, I just really resonated with a number of different things because I've always felt um, that listening was such a powerful way to interact and to impact others in a positive way, And so I really loved hearing Lori talk about that, the listening part of it, because a lot of times I feel like, and I can be very guilty of it myself, that we don't listen enough to what other people or focus on what is going on with other people and hear what is a way for us to connect with them. So
Thank you. In fact, Sandy, I'll add to that. Cyndi, what you said about the reels, one of the things when I interview people is I just let them talk. I don't interrupt. I don't, my podcast is called Interrupted. And part of the reason I do it is because the Zoom platform, if you talk over each other, we lose both. So for editing, it's a nightmare. But I'll like nod, like I'm listening, but I don't vocally respond. And what I'm finding is that gives people, oh, they don't feel like they have to stop because I'm waiting to ask the next question, or, I'm just listening to hear. And because I can edit, if we have a little bit of dead air, it's not like on the radio when you have a heart attack when there's dead air. It's like there's room. And that's why I do believe I give a really great experience for someone to be interviewed, because I allow them the space to say everything that they want to say about what they're talking about.
So I'm the only unmuted person here. That seems interesting.
Hi, Coach Laurie. It's Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
And I want to say I did a podcast for 3 years, and just now I learned everything I did wrong on that podcast for 3 years. Because it was natural to say, hey, everybody, we're at the Flame Podcast. Come join us every day, whatever we said. But I just learned so much about public speaking and about podcasting. I would like to ask you, and we'll talk because I want to know about the audiobook so bad, like I'm burning inside right now. But that's not what I'm going to do here. I want to ask you, when you're starting and you're just an average person, I used to go in studio, but if I do it now, I'm not going to go in studio. What does somebody need to get started?
I love that question. Your phone. I use a thing called Podbean, and you can actually just do it on your phone, in your closet, in your car, where there's not a lot of noise. You can do it right from your phone. I do have this awesome little mic I use. It's called let's see, a Yeti Nano. It's just a little one. We use it in radio when we have to do work from home. So it works for that. But you don't need stuff. You just need to open your mouth and talk. And then when it takes off and goes wild, if you want to get yourself a microphone or a different computer, do that. But just start with your phone. I have a little app I'll tell you about. It's called Voice Record Pro. We use it in radio when on the streets. It's free on your phone. You can just record from that. So you don't need to spend money to get started, except for maybe the app that you're going to use, Podbean. If you pay for it, it will put you on Apple and Spotify. If you don't, you can still do it. It'll just keep you on Podbean, but it doesn't cost a lot of money.
That's great.
Well,
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead, Kathy. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to expand a little bit on Nicole's comment about how your words matter and word choice is everything, and how it's easy to not even think about that. So now I'm going to be extra careful. And I hope it doesn't make me hesitate even more, though. So I worry about that, the perfectionism, and how Cyndi mentioned how you just have to do it, get over yourself, just get
Yes.
over it. And every day you can improve, and every day you'll be better. And I tell myself every morning out loud before I get out of bed, day by day, in every way, I'm getting better, better, and better.
Week, kind of thinking of the movie. Here's the thing: when I coach people and they send me stuff, I edit it, I make it sound beautiful when we're working together, and then I say, I want you to be careful about saying everybody. They go, I'll redo it. I go, no, because only half your audience is going to feel anything, and the people that feel it don't really know what it is. They just know they're not paying attention anymore. They look at their phone. So then the next time you don't do it. Like, we iterate, we learn as we go. We don't redo, it's not about perfection, it's about progress.
That's an important thing to
Mhm.
say again. We iterate. We
We iterate as we go because it's not about perfection, which is hard for some. And I get it. I have a friend who's a perfectionist and she struggles with it, but it's about progress.
Yes, us recovering perfectionists. But,
Yes.
if we just give ourselves some grace, like I know even in this conversation, I've said everybody, and I didn't mean to, but it's just, we have a new muscle that we're building, and
It's a
we
new
have to
habit.
continue
Yeah.
to, right, just build that muscle and give ourselves grace. And it's not about going back and cleaning up. It's just about getting better and better, right? And we can all just give ourselves that grace and keep
Mhm.
moving forward and getting our message out. That's the important thing is the perfectionism. That's what I'm learning from you, Lori. The perfectionism has kept me from getting my message out. And my
Oh.
message is something, it's my heart, it's my journey, it's my story that can benefit somebody else so they don't have to go through it the hard way. So they can learn vicariously. We can learn vicariously from each other.
Mhm. Yeah. So good.
Any other epiphanies, ahas, questions before we put a bow around this beautiful conversation?
A Christmas bow.
A Christmas bow, that's right.
I will. Do you want me to drop the link in the chat or do you want to just email me to get it? What would you like?
Yeah, sure. Put the link in the chat and then I'll share that in the description. And then Lori, why don't you just put a little like the bow, the Christmas bow that we were talking about, just share with our listeners something, a closing comment, maybe something that we didn't touch today that you want to be able to impart to those, each of you who are listening, who signed on this podcast and want to be encouraged.
I was helping a woman write her book, and she was in her 50s. And she told her dad, I'm writing a book, and her dad is 92. He said, I'm going to write a book someday. And I told her, I said, you tell him, do it now. Do it now. Push record. You're never too old. It's never too late. You can do it today. You can push record today. You don't have to share it with anyone. I mean, I tend to be really shy, even in my recording, but you can do it. And it is a legacy your kids will be grateful for. And I know this because of my brother-in-law. He left us so early. We never expected him to be the one to go. But now, because he did that and because I did that, when I babysat him when he was sick, I pushed record. And now we have many conversations of him just sharing his life and his stories. And I'm so glad I did. It's a gift. It's really a gift.
Well, thank you, Lori. Thank you for generously sharing with each and every one of us. And I just want to encourage everyone to remember to make every connection an exceptional connection. Signing off. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank each and every one of you for
Thank
joining us.
you.
Bye.